YouTube, peace and blessings. Happy to come at you guys with another video today. And I didn't want to try to talk so long and go throughout the whole video and break down everything that I wrote on my notes. So I'm just going to quickly talk about sitting through the suffering and finding grace in your pain, finding grace in your suffering. There's only one way to do it and really figure out why it is you're going through that, and it's through keeping your faith in God. And I know it's a very cliche answer, or it sounds too easy sometimes for people who are very in their head and you have a lot of anxiety around what's going on with your pain or whatever you're going through. Sometimes it's so much on your mind and it's just taken over your world, to whenever you hear put your faith in God, you're just like, dude, screw off. Like I'm trying to just exist and not, wake up unalive the next day. I get it. Like, a lot of people feel that way. It's an overwhelming feeling of like, I just can't control this, right? That's what I would refer to as pain or suffering, or just something that's eating away at you or your mind, or something that's about to happen, or something that did happen and that you can't get over because it was so traumatic. So that's what I'm referring to when I talk about pain and suffering and finding grace in that. Because when you're at a point where you do feel overwhelmed and you do feel like there's nothing that's going to solve this, like I might as well just clock out, I might as well check out, that's ultimate pain, where you're like, I can't bear to live anymore. And there's so much grace in that suffering that you just have no idea what's on the other side. The other side is just it's filled with so many blessings. And I would encourage you that if you're going through pain where it's like, man, it feels so hard to wake up the next day, to seek help from multiple people, like not just the church. Because when it's overwhelming to that point, you need different perspectives. Like, you need a light bulb moment. You need to hear something that's going to move the needle, so you can start some kind of habit routine, so you can just get off of the negative train, so you can just stop thinking these thoughts. Like, I'm talking about when it's bad, when the suffering and pain is bad, you got to try whatever. So when you hear people talk about, oh, this is bad for you, this is witchcraft, this is that. Well, you know what else is bad for you? Not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do anything with your life. That's terrible. That's a shitty life. Who wants to live that life? And if you are living that life, then it's like, what do you have to lose? Like, what do you have to lose from looking at different religions, looking at different philosophies, stuff that you would think is stupid, stuff that you would never open up? But if you're at a point where you're going through so much pain and suffering where you don't want to wake up the next day, why would you not try to go seek and find help, or what I call a light bulb moment? Why would you not go figure out, let's see how these different religions do it? If you're mainly Catholic, if you're mainly Christian, if you're mainly Muslim, and you're going through a hard time, you're struggling with mental health, you're battling stuff in your head, you're going through a bad breakup, whatever the case is, for you to be feeling this way, you're not grasping the long term. You're not grasping what your life's going to be like in 5 to 10 years, because you can't even imagining like waking up tomorrow and you're just like, everything seems overwhelmed. The year seems overwhelmed. 2 to 3 years from now seem overwhelmed. But when you're in that state, it's so hard to see the bigger picture. And that's why I would encourage you, especially if you only looked into one religion, or if you only looked into one aspect of life, generally speaking, especially if you're a Christian and you grew up in the church. For me personally, my experience was, I always had faith that that Jesus was my savior. But when I was going through hard times of pain and suffering, I mean, really, 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 really hard times, for me to, I didn't have the willpower to be like, Jesus, you can fix this. I know you can. And in the back of my head, I knew that he could, and he ultimately did. And I would get on my knees and I'd pray, but I didn't feel anything change. It almost felt like it would get worse sometimes. And so you're just battling whatever you want to call the devil, or you're battling those bad thoughts in your head. And sitting through that pain and suffering is just exactly what you should do. You should sit through it and let the thoughts pass, because either do that or you go and you start looking into different aspects. I'm talking about get crazy. Go into Hinduism, Church of Scientology, go into why certain philosophers believe X, Y, Z. When you start really thinking and looking at what other people in the past used to think, or you start getting different perspectives of how people handle their traumas and their pain and their life, and how they manage their stress and their emotions and their ego and their anger, when you get a better grasp of reality, and how everyone in the past, thousands of years, and people now, how they get through their problems, not just through getting on your knees and praying to God, which is what you were told to do if you grew up in the Christian church. It works. No, 100%. I'm not here to discredit prayer by any means, but there are some people who pray and they get exactly what they want. There are some people who will be dirt poor and they claim that, Jesus is their Lord and Savior, and that Jesus is going to provide for them. And, but they'll pray for other stuff and it never comes. They end up provided for. They end up being taken care of, but they will still be in the same perpetual cycle of credit card debt, of living check to check, of blowing their money, maybe being an addict. However you want to look at it. We all know there are people who pray and they are successful. They get what they want. There are people who pray and they don't. There's a method to it, right? I believe that's my belief. And I think that when you're sitting through this pain and suffering, and you're trying to figure out what's going to work, and you feel overwhelmed, the best thing to do is to try to go find a light bulb moment, which is where you might not want to study, you might not want to. All you have to do is pop YouTube open, listen to meditations, listen to Tony Robbins talk about depression, how to fight, anchoring through neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically what Tony Robbins does. Look into, I think it's called Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, how he claims he healed his back through the power of thought alone. I have his book right here, You're the Placebo. And he includes all these placebo studies in his book about how people were just getting sugar pills and they were completely curing themselves through thought alone. So the Christian church would never bring up the thought of the placebo. I'm not discrediting my religion or any denomination or what your church might have or what your parents might have taught you, but there's a lot more out there in life. And when you start to immerse yourself in a little bit more of why you're thinking this way, why you're even in pain and suffering, how you can reframe that. And in my last video, I talk about dealing with a narcissist parent and a narcissist in general, and how you can actually reframe that whole situation to have them be your teacher, and then you end up on the right side, meaning you're no longer attached to them. You no longer have, your mind isn't on them at all. You don't think about them anymore because you completely reframed it and you detached, and it's a matter of making a decision. It's a matter of what I call a light bulb moment. So I hope you guys got some value out of that. Again, I was trying to keep it under 10 minutes. I know I barely just hit it. I do have free coaching, free strategy session. However whatever you want to talk about. You got an hour of my time for free. So hit me up down below. It's on Calendly. You can pick a date and a time. Again, completely free. I'm not asking for any money. I just genuinely want to bring as much value to you guys and help out in any way that I can. So I hope everyone loved this video. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. Subscribe if you like the content I'm putting out. But again, peace and blessings. Hope you guys have a good one.